Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Philip here. It's been a while since I visited the Superpowers VR project I was working on. If you hadn't seen it, maybe over here, I'll put like a little card somewhere showing you a little preview of this Superpowers tutorial series I started. We've already handled flying. If you remember in my previous one, we did flying. So we have our player character here. You remember this little demo scene? I think this is from Cinti's simple free studio thing. So we have our player, and this is for VR. We have our OVR camera rig, so we're not using XR. I haven't really experimented with XR too much, but I will be within the next month or so experimenting with the XR rig. But I've been playing with hand tracking and stuff right now. It's just easier to use the OVR Oculus stuff. All right, and so we have our player with the OVR camera rig. We have the local avatar so that we have visible hands. Now we're using the controllers, not hand tracking in this project. And so check out the previous demo. What we did is we made it to where we didn't even set up player movement. We just set up flying. So you just stand in there, and to fly, you push the thumbstick, and then you make a fist. And then when you make the fist, you start flying, and you can turn and rotate and fly around however you want. If you use two fists, then you go fly at double speed. Pretty cool, so go check out that video if you're interested. But in this video, we are going to look at doing super speed, which you might think is a little bit silly, especially if you've taken a look at any of my other tutorials on basic character movement, because running is very common in games. And usually what you have is you have your normal controller movement logic. If you've been watching my channel, you can see I use Playmaker visual scripting. Otherwise, if you just use C# scripts, you probably have a movement speed variable. And what you do when you run is you just like double it or triple it or set it to whatever speed you want for when you run. Sure, we could do that. And that's one of the first things we're going to do is just create a movement FSM for a player's. But that's just because the game would need general movement logic. But then we're going to do our super speed. But I don't want to just hit a button and then just be able to run faster. That's silly. That's been done before. Super simple to understand that logic. I wanted to make it, because it's virtual reality, more interactive with your body. So you can move around normally in the world with a thumbstick, but then when you want to engage super speed, you toggle it just like we would for flight, and then you have to run like this. I mean, you'd be holding your controllers, but you have to run like this. And actually more of a motion than this. It actually is going to require like your hands to really come down and up. But yeah, you're going to move super speed like this. So this is going to be a multi-part tutorial. We're going to start out with, in this episode, just do the movement. And we might then work in the next episode doing the super speed. And we'll even do a special one that just handles the particle system, because I want the character to look like they're the Flash running around a city. So yeah, lots of cool stuff there. Okay, so let's get going. Long intro. So the first thing I wanted to do is to kind of get in the superhero mindset, as I wanted to get out of this space. Especially since we're going to have a Speedster, and there's not really a lot of room to run here. So I want a new scene. All right, so I'm just going to right-click in the project folder and create a scene. I'm going to call this Speedster tutorial, and I'll put a date so I remember what it is. Okay. Sure, save that. All right. So I looked into my assets that I had to see if I could find a city that I wanted to run around in. I couldn't really find one that I really loved. And then I remembered I had like this city generator tool. And so we are going to use that. So I think it's, what's the name of that tool? Fantastic City Generator. Maybe I'll do an episode that just talks about Fantastic City Generator and all the different components of it. But basically, I'm just going to use it to just build me a quick city. And I could dock it, but really after I generate the city, there's no reason for me to have this anymore. So I'll just close it out. So the first thing that we can do is we can generate streets. So if I just click small, boom, we already have a city. And if I scroll out, there's our small city. We can check mark satellite city and then regenerate. And you can see it's got another pretty much identical city that it's tied to with some weird roads. All right, but I don't want a satellite city. If I wanted to go medium, I could go medium, large, very large. And it's a pretty simple city generator. Like I feel like the grid is pretty much the same every time. The center kind of changes a little bit. I'm going to stick with small because I don't really need it to be too big. If you want, you can clear the streets and start over, but we're going to go with small. And then I want to generate buildings. If you do it without a downtown area, it's like a little small city. All right, so we can even like zoom in here. All right, if you're not sure how to make your camera move faster, if you right click on the scene, you can move with WASD. And if you use the scroll wheel on your mouse, that's as fast as you can go, 2x. If you need to move a little bit slower, like you're really close to something, you can use the scroll wheel down. But I was pretty far away. So here you can see there's not really any skyscrapers, but it's still a city. But if I put downtown area and then regenerate the buildings, you can see I have a lot more skyscrapers. And I can change the downtown size to be as big as possible. And then just the whole place is downtown. All right, and let's just take a look from up top, because I'm thinking about the Flash on CW. There's a lot of aerial scenes of him running around the city. Maybe I don't want the downtown size that big. A little bit better. Yeah. Okay. One thing that's really cool about this asset is there's a traffic system, and you can choose if they drive on the right side of the road or the left side of the road. So I'm just going to go ahead and add the traffic system because it's fun to run around with the cars. There we go. All right, so we have a city. All right, and now let's just find a place to start. Here's a nice little spot. All right, so we're gonna get set up right here. I need my player. We could grab the player from the other scene. Let's go ahead and do that. Right click superpowers, open scene additive, take the player, drag it up there, and then just remove that scene and don't save it. All right, so we don't need our main camera anymore because our player has the OVR camera prefab in it. All right, as you can see, I deleted that. I want my player to be where I'm looking at in the scene view. So I'm going to go to game object, and I want to move my player to scene view, and let's also game object align with view. I shouldn't have done that. Let's just change my rotations back to 0, and let's set my Y to 0, and there he is. All right, let's rotate minus 90. All right, I don't know, I just want to look that way. So I turn my gizmos on. You can see there's our player capsule right there. And we have our character controller already on it. And we have all of our flying stuff. But we're not going to use any of that. I really just kept this because I already have my OVR camera rig set up where I want it, as well as the local avatar and all those settings. So I'm going to remove all of these old components. And before we can really get to our Speedster superpowers, we need just basic movement. And I don't think I've covered this in a tutorial previously. Maybe I did, because I've done some previous VR tutorials. But notice we have, I never use, Oculus includes in their project folder, just trust me, they include a prefab of OVR player controller, and you basically don't have to add any logic to it. But we want to be able to put our own logic. So I have an empty game object, if you don't remember this, and then my OVR camera prefab at 1.8 meters. All right, because that's about average height of, I don't remember if that's average height of a man in the United States or if that's just my height converted to metric. I can't remember. But I put the OVR camera rig at 1.8 up on the player because the player 0 is on the ground. So, and really, if you wanted to make it in VR to where all the players were different heights, what you would want to do is would want your camera down on the floor too, 0, 0, 0. And then you would set the tracking origin type to floor level. One thing that's tough about that with VR, though, is you would want to make sure whatever avatars your characters have that are being displayed, like in multiplayer, which in this case we haven't started with multiplayer, you'd want to make sure that whatever rigs they were could scale down properly. But I'm just going to leave it at eye level for now. We can adjust the rest of that later. All right, so on our player, we're going to put all of our logic on the player. I'm just going to right-click, add the FSM, and we're going to call this movement. All right, so it's important to know that I'm using Unity 2020.3.8F1 for this project, and also I'm using the latest version of Playmaker as well, I believe. Help. About Playmaker. Yeah, 1.9.4.F2. That's important because I'm using a couple actions that I haven't used in previous tutorials. At least I don't think I've used them. All right, so this is going to be movement. All right, the FSM is called movement. This state's called movement. All right, so since we have a character controller, the easiest way to move it is to look for controller and simple move. Okay, simple move ignores the y-axis, and so that's what we're going to deal with right now. If you're just joining this chain, you're like, whoa, what are you doing now, Philip? I don't recognize anything you're doing. So I mentioned before that I use Playmaker. It's a visual scripting tool. It's much easier to use than, say, Bolt, because Bolt, you kind of need to know the ins and outs of C# anyways. Playmaker, you don't necessarily need to know anything. You just need to know how to read. All the descriptions of everything are right in there. It's normally a $60 tool. You can get it for half off lots of times. But I'm using visual scripting. If you're not interested in visual scripting, you'll still find this tutorial useful, if not more useful than others, because you can just see the basic logic and how I do things and this nice little pictograph over here on the side. And then you can convert that and just build it up in C# as well. All right, so controller simple move. What are we going to be wanting to move? We're going to be wanting to move the owner, and we're going to want to have a move vector. And we're going to want to move it in world space. Now, a lot of times I like to keep things in local space, but in this case, we're going to want to use world space based on how we are going to be getting our vector data in our movements, okay? What's nice about this action is there's a falling event. So if the character is detected as falling, meaning they're not on the ground, and they are moving downward, you have a falling event for what you would want to happen there. I've yet to use it in a project, but I'm sure one day I will. The next thing I will want to do when I'm not moving is I want to be able to jump at some point. That's not what I want. I want to add a state. And so I want to be able to jump. And in this state, I'll have controller jump. All right, I'm just going to leave everything as default for now. All right, so how do I get from controller move to controller jump? Well, on my Oculus Quest touch controllers, okay, they're pretty much identical. They're just mirror images of each other. I want to jump using the 1 button. And on the right-hand side, I believe that's the A button. All right, but in terms of OVR logic, that's considered the 1 button. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to search button. And I want the Oculus one, get touch button. And it's going to be on the right controller. It's going to be the 1 button. And I want to get the button down. All right. And then I'm going to send the event jump. All right. So here, this is when I'm jumping. And then there's an event I can do when I land. And I can put landed. All right, so that's basically the basic movement logic for really, I mean, most VR games is you're going to simple move. And then when you're jumping, you're going to get jump. And then you're going to do the controller jump action. And then when you hit the ground again, you can go back. They've made it super simple. The Playmaker folks with these nice actions to set this up. Yeah, so we're just going to leave that by default for now. But right now, we wouldn't be moving if we do this. I could plug in the headset and we could jump. But you can kind of understand what jumping would be. So, let's plug in the headset and do it real quick. All right, I got the headset on. There's not really a good way to see this. Fun fact, I was playing with Oculus Mixed Reality when I first started this project. I don't know if you know what that is, but it makes it to where you can use OBS Studio to basically put your body inside the VR game. But once you enable it, you can't disable it. I always get this weird green thing in the game window. So best thing you have to look at is the scene window right now. If you can see, let me turn off gizmos. When I pull up my controller, you can see there's the hand. I'm only using 1 controller because that's all I need for do this. And all we're doing is we're just doing our logic jumping, right? So if I press the 1 button, I jump and then I land. I jump, and then I land. Apparently, I'm in the way of that car. You see that? I jump, and the car's like, oh, I can move. Oh, nope, I can't move. All right, so really simple logic. Again, the A button on the right controller is considered the 1 button. And jump up and down like so. All right. And if you ever want to know how the buttons are mapped for Oculus, you can just go into Chrome and you can just search OVR controller map. And there's just map controllers, Oculus developers. You go in here and just scroll all the way to the bottom. Keep scrolling all the way to the bottom. So you see one of these pictures, and you can see how they're mapped. Okay, you can see button 1 right there. I feel like most lefties who are in VR have gotten used to the fact that a lot of games don't let them inverse the controls. I don't know that lefties really care that much when it comes to this. But most games, left hand joystick, that's going to be what moves you. And then like right hand joystick, that's going to be like snap turn. There are some games that allow you to switch it for lefties who'd rather move on their right and do actions on their left. But we're going to do movement on our left. All right, so how are we going to do that? Well, we need to get the joystick from the controller. So if you don't know what to look for, you can always, I'm, again, from a previous tutorial, I am using an Oculus Touch Playmaker integration package. You can get from the Unity Asset Store. I can't remember how much it costs, but I gave away 2 copies of it. Oh, who are my winners of that? Yeah, so here we go. This was a contest that I ran from October 26th through November 24th for Unity keys for the Oculus Touch Playmaker Toolkit. Only 6 of you entered. And there's the 2 winners, and they've both been given their keys, and I've heard back from them. They both thanked me, so I assume they redeemed them already. So congratulations to the 2 of you out of our 6 people who participated in the contest. Speaking of contests, I have a game jam coming up. Lots of fun info in it. I'm not going to cover it all right now. I'm going to put a couple YouTube videos that talk about it, and I'll also put that information on the jam page as well. But it ends on my birthday, so I have some games to play on my birthday, so go check that out. All right. So here I have all the Oculus actions created from the Oculus Interaction Toolkit. And we want to get the touch. Anytime you see touch, the names of these actions might not be straightforward to you, but don't worry, there's descriptors down here. But he named these actions based on how Oculus names them, named the API. But get touch thumbstick access. So these are touch controllers. Started with the Rift. The Rift had their OG controllers, and then they had the touch controllers, and then Quest 1 got touch controllers, and Quest 2 is touch controllers. All right, so we want get touch thumbstick access. That's the first thing that we want. We want it from the left controller. I'm not going to do a multiplier on this because we're going to handle our speed from down here. And in fact, we can just come over here and let's go ahead and change that speed to a variable. And for now, I'm going to set my speed as, from last time, I think I like 3. I think 3 is a pretty good speed when it comes to this environment. All right, so we're going to get the touch thumbstick axis, and then we are going to store the X as X. Why not? And then we're going to store the Y as Y. All right. Now, this is getting it in local space, I believe. So we're just going to save some testing here. And what we're going to do is we're going to translate this X and Y. It's getting, if we look in our hierarchy, and we have our tracking space, we have our right controller, right hand anchor. All right. And then we have our right controller anchor. Ooh, how did that get in there? I don't even know what that is. Let's delete it. It's particle system. I can't remember if it's from our flying player or from whenever I was practicing the Speedster. All right, so we got a right controller anchor, and so it'll always be 0, 0, 0, unless it moves outside. It's like while I move this around, the position of the controller will change, but the position of the joystick, it's going to be determined on if it moves from its current position. So it's always going to be a local position. So what we have to do is we want to get that and translate it into a world position. And one of the reasons that we're going to move into world space is because we're moving our player who's always going to be facing the same direction. Unless we snap turn. That's the only time that it won't be. So we're using world space because if we do local space, things will get janky pretty quick. Because the Oculus Quest is in 6 degrees of freedom, without me touching my controllers at all, I can move like this, and my OVR camera rig, at least my center eye anchor, I'm going to move that way as well as my hands. So what we have to do everything in world space to make this work right. So I have that XY points, and I'm going to vector 3 world, transform input to world space. All right, so it says right here, transforms a 2D input into 3D world space. All right, so I'm just going to take that, and I'm going to put that here. So what's my horizontal input? So Y is going to be our vertical, right? And then our horizontal left and right is going to be X. All right, and here you can choose what plane to map it to. And so this is how it makes it work for us. So we're going to map it to the XZ plane. So that's where our X is going to be our horizontal and our Z is going to be the vertical. Yeah, and so we want it relative to what? Now, in some cases, you might want this relative to the center eye anchor, because when you push forward, you might want to be moving forward in the direction that you're looking. But let's try it without making it relative to anything just yet. And let's store this vector as our move vector. And again, we don't need to mess with the multiplier or the magnitude because we're going to control our speed with just this speed thing here. So now our controller should move because we actually have a vector that's changing. So let's put on the headset and see what happens. All right, so now something's not working. So I'm pushing forward on the joystick, but I'm moving right. Back on the joystick, and I'm moving to the left. Left on the joystick, I'm moving forward. Right on the joystick, I'm moving back. Okay, so this is where there's a lot of different unique ways that VR developers handle movement. Some of them give you the option to move based on where your hand is. Like, it can be very interesting when you're playing a gun game because you'll be holding forward, but then as you like move your gun, or even if you just like have your hand at your side, all of a sudden you're moving in a direction you weren't expecting because that's where your hand is moving. Most VR games, I feel like, do it based on where you're looking is going to be forward. So let's try that first. So I'm just going to take my center eye anchor and put that into the relative to slot, and then we just try this again. There we go. Forward, backward, left, right. Okay. But if I look here now and hold forward, now I'm moving there. I just realized none of that is worthwhile for you to see. All right, so we're getting a little bit better view since my Unity editor. I use SideQuest to open up screen copy, or however it's called, Scrippy. So now you can see what it looks like when I'm actually walking around in here. So you can see I'm moving at 3 speed, and it's kind of a bit slow still. But this is about what I would say normal walking speed would be. So if I'm looking forward and I'm holding forward on the joystick, I'm walking forward. If I start looking to the left, oh, now I'm going to get hit by a car. Oh man, that's hilarious. Okay, I've never done that before. All right, so if you decide like you want to look around the scenery, the player will have to compensate by now I'm moving my joystick slightly to the left. I think that's still very cool, very playable. I love this little city generator. Okay, so very simple movement. Now, I know you came here to see a Speedster, but I think we should break this up so you don't have to, if you ever have to go back and rewatch it, you don't have to go through 100 hours of footage. This is still pretty long to just kind of intro this and what our plan is. And all we did was basically basic player movement FSM. All right, so you're going to get a touch stick thumbstick from the left controller, store the X and the Y. You're going to transfer that input into world space relative to the center eye anchor. Store that into a vector 3 as move vector or whatever you want to name it. And then use the controller simple move action. In the move vector action, put that variable. Set your speed what you want. I encourage you to make it a variable. That way you can change it with other FSMs from sprinting and running, or if you're walking through sand, you want it to be slower, stuff like that. Make sure you're doing the controller simple move in world space. And then we also added a jump because it's simple enough, where we use the 1 button, which is the A button on the right controller. And then we send that jump event, and then we just use the controller jump action, and we land. It triggers the land event, and it goes back to the movement state. All right, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, or to continue this going. Next time, we're going to take a look at actually toggling our super speed, and then using the super speed by pumping our arms. I keep doing this, but my controllers would drop if I did that, so it'd be more like this. But we're going to be running, and what's going to be nice about this action is you're going to, the faster you move your arms, the faster you're going to run. And if I remember right, my speed variable right here in movement, it's actually going to be like up to 30. That's how much faster we're going to go. So that's what we're going to tackle in the next episode. All right, see you then.